Hello guys, this is your friend Dark Fox 2.0. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Finds Lost Uzumaki Summoning Contract Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto and Sasuke rushed at each other, signature attacks blazing in each of their hands for a final strike. Due to Sasuke's slightly taller size, his attack landed first, spearing Naruto in his right shoulder, slightly piercing the boy's lung. The immense jolt of pain was enough to cause the blonde to lose the concentration he'd used to maintain his balance on the damaged terrain, and he fell forward. The Rasengan, formerly aimed for the Uchiha's forehead protector, slammed directly into the traitorous youth's stomach, sending him flying backwards straight into a wall. As Naruto stood there panting, every cell in his body screaming out in pain, he managed a foxy grin. "Beat you, Tem," he smirked before promptly falling unconscious from pain and blood loss. Hitaki Kakashi hopped through the tree surrounding the Valley of the End accompanied by his nin dog Pakun. As he approached the valley, his eyes instantly locked on the prone form of his fallen student, Sasuke Uchiha. The boy, his prodigy and his pride, was lying on the ground unconscious. Kakashi quickly went over to check on his injured student, before sighing in relief. None of his prodigy's wounds were too severe: multiple small wounds, a couple bruised and broken bones, and some minor head trauma, but no threats of brain damage or permanent disablement. With any luck and some proper medical treatment, his star student would be on his feet and training again in no time. "Kakashi!" shouted Pakun, who had rushed over to check on the injured Naruto. "Naruto's not in good condition, he's got a pierced lung and some other serious injuries. It looks like his healing ability just can't keep up with this level of damage. If we don't the kid to an emergency room, he'll be dead in a few hours." "Good," stated a cheery Kakashi, eye smiling at his faithful ninkan. "Good," shouted out a shocked Pakun. "Didn't you just hear me, Kakashi? If we don't get him to a hospital soon, your student will die." "Exactly," stated Kakashi, still eye smiling. Noting Pakun's shocked expression, he decided to explain while he lifted Sasuke off the ground. "Naruto's always been a failure of a ninja. Naruto's too loud and brash to ever accomplish anything of any importance, and he lacks the skills necessary to become anything higher than a chunin. Sasuke, on the other hand, is a prodigy, the last survivor of the great Uchiha clan. With his skills restoring the Uchiha clan and even becoming the first Uchiha Hokage are easily within his grasp. With Naruto's death, Sasuke will gain the Mangekyo Sharingan, and thus grow even stronger. In death, Naruto will be able to do much more for Konoha than he could ever do in life," finished the gray-haired Junin. "Kakashi, that's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. Besides, if the blonde's such a failure, how the hell he beat your precious prodigy here?" growled out the diminutive canine. "He probably caught poor Sasuke by surprise with some dirty demon trick," responded the one-eyed Junin, shrugging his shoulders, making sure not to injure his precious cargo. "Just another reason he should die. I refuse to let that demon gain any more strength," stated Kakashi quietly to himself, though Pakun's sensitive ears caught it. With those final muttered, the gray-haired copy ninja leapt back toward Konoha, leaving his summon and his abandoned student behind. "That lying two-faced little bastard," growled out Pakun. "He just used that half-assed excuse to justify letting the pup die due to his prejudice." The small ninkan then turned to Naruto. "Rest easy, pup. There's no way in hell I'm gonna let you die like this. You're too good a pup to let that happen," stated Pakun somberly, remembering the encounters he'd had with the pup during the Chunin exams and a few times thereafter on smaller missions. The kid was loyal to a fault, just like his own kind, and ninkan would never let their own kind die. With those final thoughts, Pakun rolled back his head and let loose a loud howl, a howl too loud for a dog as small as him to release naturally. Seconds later, he and Naruto were surrounded by a large number of puffs of smoke. Surrounding the two was the remainder of Kakashi's ninkan squad. Before any questions could be asked, Pakun spoke up. No time to explain, boys. Naruto here's been severely injured and we have to get him back to Konoha before he croaks. I'll explain everything else on the way. Shiba, Urushi, help me get Naruto up on Bull's back. Everyone else, spread out and do a quick search to see if you can find something to help stop the kid from bleeding out, ordered the diminutive ninkan, with the rest of his squad quickly following their diminutive leader's orders. It took the 3 members of the ninkan squad only a few minutes to get the injured blonde onto Bull's back, and a few seconds later the remainder of the squad returned. One had brought an herb that if chewed and applied to a wound would instantly cause the blood in the surrounding area to clot, preventing further blood loss. Pakun immediately got the squad moving toward Konoha while remained atop Bull to apply the medical herb. After he was done, he began to tell the members of his squad exactly what Hitaki had done, much to the numerous growls from the squad of ninkan. The dog summons of the ninkan contract were some of the most loyal summons one could find, and as a contract summons they required anyone who summoned them to share their strong sense of loyalty. To hear that their summoner had openly betrayed a fellow member of his pack, worse a pup under his own protection, was an affront to everything their clan stood for. Kakashi Hitaki had just crossed a line, and now his summons were not happy about it. Urushi, a slim dog with shaggy beige fur, white marking, and traditional Japanese angry eyes, which were now narrowed in rage, was the first to voice his opinion. That rat. I swear once we get to Konoha I'm going to rip off the bastard's arms for this. He snarled out, revealing a set of very sharp teeth. You can have his arms, I intend to rip out his throat, growled out Shiba, a shaggy red-furred dog with a black crest and small eyes, not to mention a set of shark-like teeth. Urushi and Shiba were the primary combat dogs for the squad and as such were the most hot-blooded. We should tell the boss about this as soon as possible. Hitaki's crossed the final line, stated Bisuke, a dull yellow-furred dog with dark circles surrounding his eyes and the kanji for Shinobi marking his forehead, in his usual dreary tone, though the other dogs noted a hint of disappointment in the usually calm dog's monotone. I'm with Bisuke. Hitaki's been on thin ice with the boss since he got his friend Obito killed. This news will really set her off, stated Ue, a lean dog with short red and white fur, narrow eyes, and bandages wrapped around his head and shoulders. You're right, stated Pakun somberly. Bisuke, Ue, I want you two to go and report to the boss about this. Tell her Hitaki's finally gone too far on this one. We may have given him a second chance since his father was probably the greatest summoner we've ever had, but what he did to the pup is unforgivable. What do you suggest for his punishment, Pakun-san? Questioned Garuko, a small yellow dog with white markings and a pair pronounced fangs on the edge of his mouth. Complete banishment from our contract and those of any of our allies, growled out Pakun. This shocked a number of the ninkan. Complete banishment meant that not only would the person banished be unable to use their contract, or any of the other clans that the ninkan had allied with over the years, but any of their descendants would be automatically refused the right to summon as well. Not only that, but any summoner who had done something so disgusting or insulting to his summons to earn this level of punishment would likely find it nearly impossible to convince even an unallied summons clan to allow him the right. Basically it meant that the person's entire line would lose the ability to properly sign summoning contracts. It was the most severe punishment the summons could pass on a summoner, reserved for only those who betrayed their summons on the highest level. Are you sure about that, Pakun-san? Stated Akino, another yellow-furred dog who wore a pair of sunglasses and a scarf around his neck. The Hitaki clan has held our kind's summoning contract for generations. If any Hitaki is forbidden from signing our scroll again, we'll need to find a new summoner, unless we want to risk leaving the summoning scroll out for Hitaki to find and destroy in an attempt for revenge. I know it's extreme, but what Hitaki did to the pup violated the very basis of our clan's laws, that merits the most severe punishment we have. As for a new summoner, I already have a good idea on someone who'd fit our needs perfectly, stated Pakun with a soft chuckle, as he looked backwards at the unconscious blonde riding behind him. The fox child? Asked Bisuk calmly. No insult meant, merely a question. Yup, stated the small pug. I've only met the kid a few times, but each and every time I have, he's been willing to risk his life to defend his home and his friends. That's the kind of loyalty that our kind requires of a summoner. Bisuk and Ue both nodded their heads. If their leader was willing to vouch for the pup, then that's all the assurance they needed. We'll give the boss your message and suggestions, stated Ue, before both he and Bisuk disappeared in twin puffs of smokes. I hope I'm right about you, pup, thought Pakun, or my tail's gonna be in some severe fire. The small ninkan then let out a soft sigh before ordering his team to move double time. Konoha Gates. A short time later. Standing at the gates of her village, Tsunade Senju was worried. Most of the Sasuke recovery team had made it back already, and all of them were injured in some way or another. She had just finished operating on Choji, who was suffering extreme chakra exhaustion and internal damage after using the Akamichi, 3-colored food pills. The boy had been in a rough spot, but luckily she was able to stabilize him. Now all the boy would need was a little rest and he'd be fine. Neji had suffered a number of piercing wounds throughout his body, but the boy should recover in time. Kiba and Akamaru had also suffered a large number of physical injuries, mostly severe cuts and a few broken bones plus, and were also suffering from chakra exhaustion, but they'd both pull through after some recovery time. Shikamaru had suffered the least amount of injuries of the group. Whether this was due to his tactical expertise or just sheer dumb luck, she couldn't tell. The only problems with him were a slight case of chakra exhaustion, a broken finger, and a number of minor cuts and bruises. Finally, Rock Lee was suffering from several injuries from his fight with the bone-wielding Kagaya, not to mention a severe hangover, but he'd be fine with a little rest. Now the only remaining member missing was the person she'd come to view as a younger brother, or even as a son at times. Naruto Uzumaki. Surrounding her were several others. Standing by her side, as always, was her assistant Shizune, who seemed just as worried about the young blonde as she did. Tsunade knew that the younger woman cared for Naruto, though the exact nature of those feelings was unknown to her, but she guessed it was close to a sibling relationship. Nearby, the 3 Sand siblings also stood waiting for the blonde's return. Temari and Kankuro both seemed mildly nervous, but Gaara was the alarming. While the young redhead's face remained as stoically calm as ever, anyone with any experience reading people, which thanks to her years of experience gambling, despite her losses, Tsunade had in spades, could tell how nervous the young man was. It wasn't all that surprising really, considering all that Naruto had done for the younger Jinchuriki. Naruto had been the one to save the formerly psychotic redhead from his lonely existence by beating some sense into his head, both literally and metaphorically. Now Gaara considered Naruto both his personal savior and his closest friend. It was only natural for the redhead to worry for his safety. Standing nearby was Hinata Hyuga, a young kunoichi who Tsunade knew had a monster crush on Naruto. She'd seen herself on multiple occasions how the shy, soft-spoken Hyuga would get all nervous and twitchy whenever her little brother was around, even fainting dead straight if he got too close to her. The young Hyuga had seemed to have some serious self-esteem and confidence issues that needed to be worked out, but she had a lot of promise. Personally, Tsunade liked the girl and thought she and Naruto would be good for each other. The blonde's endless confidence and warm nature would help build the Hyuga girl's own confidence, while the soft-spoken Hyuga might actually be able to calm the overly energetic blonde. She was certainly a better option than Naruto's current crush. Speaking of that annoyance, Sakura Haruno was also among the group waiting for the blonde's return. However, unlike the rest of the group that was waiting for the blonde, she seemed more interested in her traitorous teammate than the loyal one who'd set out to retrieve him. She had once considered the girl a possible applicant for apprenticeship under her, but that thought had been thrown out the window a long time ago. The girl was arrogant, pushy, and had an overly inflated opinion of herself, not to mention her nearly complete lack of skills, besides nearly perfect chakra control. Still, that facet had made her an appealing applicant, considering the control requirements necessary for medical jutsu, not to mention her own super strength techniques. But since this entire debacle started and the girl kept ranting on about how Naruto Baka had better not hurt her Sasuke-kun, the elder blonde's opinion of the pink-haired girl kept falling lower and lower. The girl had practically begged Naruto to bring Sasuke back, and now she was ranting insults about the blonde. The only thing keeping the slug Sanin from turning the pinkette into paste was her overriding worry for her little brother. Suddenly a figure appeared in front of the group. Standing tall in front of them was Kakashi Hatake, and resting on his back was no other than Sasuke Uchiha. The masked ninja quickly spoke to the blonde Hokage. Hokage-sama, I've brought back Sasuke, but I'm unsure about his current condition. I need you to take a look, lied the one-eyed nin. He was quite certain about his student's condition, but needed a moment to catch his breath and prepare himself for the questions that would soon follow covering the demon brat. Tsunade nodded her head and did a quick diagnostic jutsu to examine the Uchiha's injuries. Nodding her head upon completion, she stated calmly, the Uchiha's fine, other than a few broken bones and some other minor injuries. The concussion he's got on the back of his head is pretty bad, but he should wake up in a week or so. She then noted the Junin's solitary form. Kakashi, she breathed, her heart quivering at the possibilities, where's Naruto? Kakashi hung his head in mock sorrow while doing his best to keep his voice and face a mask of empty emotions. I'm sorry to say, Tsunade-sama, but sadly Naruto Uzumaki didn't survive this mission, he stated in a voice filled with false sadness and sorrow. No, whispered the blonde Sanin as she felt her heart break. Around her similar looks and voices filled the small crowd waiting for the blonde's return. Hinata and Shizune both looked close to breaking into tears, and Gaara and his siblings wore masks of pure shock and sorrow. The only one unconcerned was the pink-haired Haruno, who was too busy crooning over her injured Sasuke-kun to even notice. Sadly, it's true, stated the apparently grieving Hatake, doing his best to hide the smirk beneath his mask. I'm afraid that he took too many injuries in his attempt to bring Sasuke back unharmed. When I arrived, Sasuke was already unconscious and Naruto was on death's door. I held him as his heart stopped, and he whispered his final wish to me. Take Sasuke home, and make sure he's safe and happy. Those were his last words to me. Naruto was truly a ninja who understood the true meaning of loyalty, finished Kakashi with a suppressed sob, while inwardly he was smirking quite with more than a bit of pride at his deception. While Kakashi was primarily a combat nin, that didn't mean he lacked an ability to lie or deceive people. The story was perfect, just the right splash of details without being overly thought out. Even the blonde's false dying wish sounded perfectly like the blonde's overly caring nature. This story not only kept Kakashi's hands clean, but it would make sure the overly sentimental Hokage wouldn't take any actions against Sasuke for the younger blonde's death. She wouldn't dare go against her beloved little brother's dying wish if she could help it. Kakashi's moment of smug superiority was shattered a second after it began when a new voice spoke up. That's the second biggest load of crap I've heard you say today, Hatake, shouted out a grizzled voice from behind the shocked Junin, who instantly recognized the voice. Turning around slowly, not sure whether he wanted to see what was behind him, the silver-haired copy nin's eyes widened at the sight behind him. Tsunade's world had shattered. Her baby brother was dead, again. She'd lost yet another precious person. The elder Senju was so lost in her own grief that she barely heard the remainder of Kakashi's story. Only when the third voice had cut, did she even bother to raise her head. Thinking it was some fool who'd dare mock her now dead brother's legacy, she prepared to turn the speaker into mincemeat, only to stop short at the sight she saw before her. Standing in the center of the road was a massive ninkan, one she recognized as belonging to Kakashi's own squad. Sitting atop the dog's massive head was the undeniable speaker, a diminutive ninkan she recognized as Pakun. Surrounding the massive ninkan was 4 of the remaining 6 members of his ninkan squad. Finally, lying right behind the diminutive Pakun and across Bull's massive back, unconscious but still breathing if the slow and sporadic rising and falling was any indicator, was one Naruto Uzumaki. Forgetting everything else for the moment, she ran straight for her little brother. As she approached the small ninkan still perched on the giant's head spoke up again, "Lady Tsunade, boy am I glad to see you." "The pup's in bad shape," said the small dog, worried eyes focusing on the younger blonde shinobi. Tsunade went to work in an instant. With a little help from Shizune, who'd followed right after her, the two removed the injured genin from his perch across the large dog's back and gently laid him flat across the ground. She did a quick diagnostic jutsu again and the results were grim. A pierced lung, several broken bones, and severe blunt force damage and electrical burns to several of his internal organs. A normal person would have died instantly from this collection of injuries, but Naruto was no normal person. Kyuubi's chakra seemed to be doing its best to heal the boy, but with the severity of his injuries, all the fox's chakra seemed to be capable of doing was to keep the blonde breathing, and even then it was barely able to do that. Tsunade gritted her teeth. She'd just gotten her baby brother back from an apparent death and she'd be damned 10 times over if she was going to lose him again. Barking out orders to Shizune, she got to work. Working in perfect tandem, the two did everything they could to heal the blonde. Luckily, the fox seemed to be enhancing their efforts considerably. Not only did the fox do its own work in healing the blonde's injuries once it no longer needed to focus keeping him alive, but its chakra also seemed to enhance their own healing jutsu. Tsunade was still shocked at the regenerative abilities the fox seemed to grant Naruto. The blonde was at death's door mere minutes ago and now he was on the fast track to recovery. Normally it would have taken hours of work just to stabilize the blonde followed by months of recovery time, but now their work was done in less than half an hour and given the rate of healing combined with her own medical jutsu the blonde would be back at full strength in a few days. Tsunade was soon shaken out of her contemplation by a chorus of growls and snarls and the pained scream of a one-eyed ninja. Kakashi Hatake was in shock. His own ninkan had betrayed him, bringing the blonde demon brat back to Konoha. Thoughts ran through his head. With this new development he was in considerable danger. His own story just a moment ago claimed that the blonde had died in his arms. Calming himself, the Junin quickly formulated a plan. He could easily claim that he was mistaken about the blonde's death, stating that he wasn't a full medic like Tsunade. Granted, he'd probably be in a lot of trouble from Tsunade for nearly letting her brother die, but he'd survive it. Then all he'd have to do was kill the demon brat before he got a chance to recover and dispute his claim on the blonde's last words. All that would take would be a little effort and some good poison. The only problem was his traitorous ninkan, Pakun. If the dog told Tsunade what had happened, his goose was cooked. He needed to get close enough to Pakun to forcibly dispel the summons. Then he could re-summon the dog in an area where they could work this out. Worst case scenario, he'd simply cancel the contract with the ninkan, stating that he and Pakun had a major disagreement about what had happened and the dog had gotten the contract cancelled before he could explain what had happened. Plan set into his mind, the one-eyed Junin started to move forward, only to be stopped halfway. As soon as he'd even approached the downed blonde with the small nin pug sitting by his side, the rest of his former squad launched into immediate action. The remaining ninkan launched themselves at their former master and each latched onto him and held him down while the silver-haired ninja screamed in pain. Shiba and Urushi, being 2 of the larger and stronger dogs of the pack, both latched onto an arm holding it down and to the side, preventing the copy nin from using a single jutsu or attempting to dispel them. Guruko and Akino, being smaller and with a lot less power, latched onto the man's ankles, gripping tightly and jerking, causing the man to fall to his knees. Lastly, Bull appeared behind the downed Shinobi and bit deeply into the man's right shoulder while putting his massive weight to good use and pinning down the already injured Hatake. Turning around, Pakun growled at his former master before stating coldly, "Do you honestly think we're going to let you get anywhere this pup after what you tried to do to him, Hatake?" Pakun started the silver-haired ninja before he cut off by a snarl from the diminutive ninkan. "Save it," snarled out the pug. "I've already sent Ue and Bisuk to inform the boss about exactly what you did to that pup, and I've already gave her my recommendation for your punishment. Complete banishment from not only our contract, but from all of our allies as well." Kakashi's visible eye widened in shock. He knew full well what complete banishment would mean. Neither he nor any of his kin would ever be able to summon again. "You can't do that," shouted out the shocked ninja. "I can and I did, and it's the least you deserve for betraying the pup like you did," growled out the enraged ninkan. "Excuse me," stated the voice of the fifth Hokage, who'd observed their entire discussion, seemingly forgotten by the two. Kakashi did not like the eerie calm that now filled the Sanin's voice. It did not speak well for his chances of survival. "Pakun was it?" she asked, smiling at the small ninkan. Getting a nod from the small dog, she continued, "Given your reaction to his story, and the obvious proof of Naruto still being alive, when Kakashi told us, now what was it?" "Oh yes, I felt his heart stop as I held him in my arms." "Was that it, Kakashi?" She slowly turned calm and cold eyes to the now sweating form of Hatake Kakashi. Before the ninja could speak up in his own defense, she returned her attention back to the small pug before her. "I can only assume that Kakashi's story was fabricated in some way. Would you mind telling me what really happened?" Pakun nodded his head, and launched into his explanation. He told them, nearly word for word, exactly what happened in his conversation with Kakashi in the Valley of the End, including Kakashi's little statement at the end. Following closely by his and his squad's actions to get the blonde safely back to Konoha. At the end, the pug asked if the young blonde would be alright. After getting a solid confirmation from the elder medic, he nodded to his squad and had them dispel, before telling the Hokage that he may have some things to discuss with the blonde when he woke up and asked if she would mind sending one of her slugs to his clan's territory to alert them when the blonde regained consciousness. After getting an assurance that she'd do just that as soon as the Naruto regained consciousness, she bid the pug a fond farewell. After the dog dispersed in a cloud of smoke, she turned now baleful eyes onto the form of Kakashi Hatake, who was currently shaking in fear and looked ready to piss himself. "So Hatake, any last words before I begin to turn your head into mush?" she asked with an evil smirk while cracking her knuckles. Before the scared shitless ninja could even utter a squeak for mercy, a high-pitched and shrilly voice made itself known. "Why should Kakashi-sensei be punished? Naruto Baka deserved to be left for dead after he tried to hurt Sasuke-kun," shrieked out the pink-haired form of Sakura Haruno. She was currently standing over the downed Naruto with her leg held, seemingly preparing to kick her now revived teammate in the head for daring to hurt her Sasuke-kun. Tsunade's only thought was which would hit the pink at first, her fist or Gaara's sand. Surprisingly, it was neither. Hinata Hyuga was having a really emotional day. First, her cousin had been admitted to the hospital nearly dead from numerous wounds inflicted while trying to bring back the traitorous Uchiha. She couldn't describe the fear or remorse in her stomach. She and her cousin had just started to get back to being close thanks to Naruto-kun. Then she'd felt unimaginable relief after finding out he'd recover. Then came new fear accompanied by a sense of dread and worry as she waited for Naruto-kun to return from trying to retrieve the traitor. Then came the heart-wrenching despair upon hearing that Naruto-kun had died from his sensei, but luckily those thoughts and feelings died in a moment after the ninkan appeared carrying an injured but still breathing Naruto. Following the relief were flashes of the most extreme rage she'd ever felt as she listened to the tiny pug recount how Hatake had left Naruto-kun to die, for an excuse to help the Uchiha gain power. The sight of the pink-haired Haruno, the girl Naruto-kun always showed so much kindness and compassion to, the girl she'd kill to just be in her place, standing over the injured form of Naruto, ready to kick the injured boy for fulfilling his promise to her, did something that no one thought possible. It pissed the normally kind-hearted Hyuga off, big time. Hinata Hyuga snapped. Before the pink-haired fangirl could bring her kick to bear, Hinata Hyuga was in front of her. Hinata stood stark still in her Juken stance, her Byakugan flaring in rage, and a shocking amount of killer intent focused directly on the pinkett in front of her. Hinata-san, what the hell are you doing? Get out of my way! Shouted the pinkett, either ignoring or not noticing the killing intent that flared around the pale-eyed girl. I should be asking the same question, Haruno. Naruto just fulfilled his promise to you and now you're trying to hurt him even more. I asked Naruto Baka to bring Sasuke-kun back to me, not beat him up. Shrieked the fangirl. The Baka couldn't do a single thing right. This is the one time I ask that idiot to help and he goes and fouls it up. That little doby is just, her words were cut off by a palm strike directly to her stomach. How dare you? Each snarled word accompanied by another strike from the lavender Hyuga. Naruto-kun has always risked his life for you. Always helped you whenever he could, and you have the nerve to say something like that. You ungrateful bitch. With that final shouted insult, Hinata sent the girl flying with a double palm directly to her oversized forehead. Before the girl could move to strike again, a hand caught her shoulder. Turning, she saw the grinning face of the fifth Hokage staring down at her. Hinata gulped, realizing had she just done, she'd attacked another Konoha nin in front of the Hokage, that was ground for immediate and severe punishment. Wasn't she surprised when the Hokage patted her on the shoulder and said happily, couldn't have said it any better myself, she said, flashing the girl a warm grin. Tsunade wasn't a woman who normally liked surprises, but the actions of one Hinata Hyuga were certainly an exception to that rule. Maybe, I actually do have a good candidate for a second apprentice. She thought happily, remembering the scroll Kurenai had given her on the blue-haired Hyuga, stating her near-perfect control. After giving the girl another pat on the shoulder, she called, Shizune, get Naruto-kun and Haruno-san to the hospital, I'll handle the Uchiha myself when I'm done with Hatake. Hinata-chan, would you mind helping her with Naruto? I think she might need an extra hand. I also want to see you in my office in a few days about a special offer I may have for you. Hinata nodded her head while blushing deeply, and went over to help Shizune with Naruto, with the Sand siblings following close behind to provide an escort. Once the two had left, Tsunade turned her attention back to the still cowering form of Kakashi Hatake. Her evil grin returning to full force, she stated sweetly, now where were we? She asked while cracking her knuckles. For many hours later, the screams of pain of one Hatake Kakashi filled the streets of Konoha. After beating the bastard Hatake to her heart's content, she picked up both his and the Uchiha's unconscious bodies and left off to the secure medical center where these two would recover until it was time for both of them to face sentencing for treason. While she carried the two, Tsunade couldn't help but smile. Her brother was going to be fine, and she had a good prospect for a second apprentice. All was right in the world. The next day, you want me to what? Shrieked out the slug Sannin turned Godime Hokage. The volume of the blonde Sannin's shout alone was enough to make a certain pink-haired genin jealous. However, unlike the shrill sounds of the fangirl's shriek, Tsunade's enraged voice sounded more along the lines of a roar than an actual shriek. That, combined with her slamming her fists onto the table, nearly shattering it, and the amount of killing intent she was subconsciously releasing, was enough to send most of the civilian members of the council scurrying backward and the shinobi members reaching for their weapons. It is the decision of the council that both Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha will not be tried as traitors for their actions. It is also our decision that Naruto Uzumaki is to be banished from Konoha, stated the cold tone of the ancient war hawk known as Danzo Shimura, who was currently sitting on the opposite side of the table between his fellow members of the Elder Council, Homura Mitokado and Kaharu Udatane, her sensei's former teammates. Explain yourselves, hissed the Hokage, glaring directly at the elders. First of all, the Uchiha attempted to defect from Konoha to one of our greatest enemies, and you want to let him get off scotch-free. As for Hatake, he not only abandoned a severely injured comrade, a genin under his direct authority no less, to die, but lied to me about it, she growled out. Please, you can't blame the boy when his actions were obviously not of his own control. Stated Homura calmly, the elderly man speaking with a crisp and calm decorum. It's obvious from our reports that the curse mark that Orochimaru inflicted on the boy negatively influenced his personality. Our reports clearly show that the boy had been suffering from fits of aggressive and antisocial behavior since that man infected him. Combined with the mental trauma the Uchiha massacre and his brother's betrayal caused the boy, and his strong desire to avenge his clan, the boy was obviously not in his right mind. Steps are being taken to ensure that this doesn't happen again. We already have seal masters working on a way to permanently suppress the seal, and we have also placed a locator tag on the boy's leg to ensure any other attempts at kidnapping will be futile. As for young Kakashi, stated Kaharu, our interview with him showed that while the man did make a mistake, it wasn't one worthy of the crimes you're blaming him for. From Kakashi's rendition of the events, the man was quite certain that Naruto would die before he could get him back to Konoha, while he was uncertain about Sasuke's condition. Clearly the man believed that Naruto was beyond his ability to save, so he focused on saving the one student he thought he was capable of helping. As for lying to you, well, I can't really blame the poor boy. It is well known how close you and the young Uzumaki are. If he'd told you the exact truth, you'd have probably killed him then and there, stated the elderly woman, her voice filled with false sympathy. What about the statement Pakun gave me? From that it's quite clear that Hatake's intentions in leaving behind Naruto were wholly malicious, snapped Tsunade. HMMPH. Snorted Kaharu, the word of one of our ninja far outweighs the word of a summons, and since there are no other witnesses or evidence, we can only trust in our shinobi. You needn't worry, Tsunade. Kakashi will still be punished for his breaches in conduct, but I don't believe the boy's poor choices should cost him his life, especially given the circumstances. Furthermore, given your close relationship with the boy he abandoned, we'll be the ones to decide the punishment, since your closeness to the case would obviously impede your ability to make a fair and unbiased judgment. Yeah, right, Tsunade mentally scoffed. From what I've read, those fits of aggressive and antisocial behavior have been going on since the Bratz clan was slaughtered, but you idiots have been ignoring or explaining it away just so you can have your precious Uchiha clan revived. As for Kakashi, you just want him to be able to keep teaching the little bastard. I also doubt any punishment you inflict on the man will even be noticeable. Hell, they probably want to reward him for almost getting rid of Naruto. Mentally growled out the elder woman, but she knew that this wasn't the time or the place to argue about that, and, quite frankly, she didn't much care what happened to the Uchiha or Hatake now. The only one she cared about right now was her little brother. And what about banishing Naruto? What the hell is the boy's crime? Growled out the blonde woman murderously. Naruto Uzumaki is charged and convicted of the assault and attempted murder of the clan heir of the Uchiha clan. A most serious crime, stated Danzo somberly, with a twisted smirk on his face, a smirk shared by the remainder of the Elder Council, the Civilian Council, and to Tsunade's surprise and anger, a large majority of the clan council. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, shouted out the blonde Hokage. Naruto and his team was assigned to retrieve Sasuke by any means necessary, and from what I've seen, Sasuke was the one least injured by their fight. Calm yourself, Tsunade-sama, stated Danzo coolly, his voice never losing its even tone. From what we've confirmed from the battle, it is clear the blonde used excessive force than necessary to bring back the young Uchiha. Under Konoha law, those actions against a fellow ninja especially one not under his own power, constitutes charges of assault and attempted murder. And where the hell do you get the idea that Naruto used excessive force? Snarled out Tsunade. From Kakashi's report, of course. Stated a smirking Danzo. Within it we find statements on the condition of the battlefield and the young Uchiha, that clearly shows the young Uzumaki clearly used greater force than necessary to capture young Sasuke. Along with those charges there are the clear indicators the boy is succumbing to the demon held within him. The many instances of his use of its chakra is a clear enough sign of that. The boy needs to be removed from Konoha immediately for the village's safety if nothing else. Tsunade was gripping the edge of the council table so hard that the two chunks in her hands suddenly cracked and snapped off. Throwing the hunks of wood, that were now barely more than handfuls of sawdust, to the side she rounded her glare onto the clan council. I expected this kind of blatant favoritism and animosity from the civilians, but am I to take it that the clan council agrees with this as well? I thought that you people at least were capable of seeing past the damned fox, she growled angrily. For the most part the council cringed under their leader's glare, but Hiashi Hyuga decided to speak up. It is the near unanimous, the head of the Hyuga clan shot a glare at Shibi Aburame, that the boy is too dangerous to remain inside Konoha. The indicators of his use of Kyuubi's chakra in the confrontations with Zabuza Momochi, my nephew Neji, and then again in his battle with Sasuke are clear signs the seal is weakening. Given those facts, it is in the best interests of the village to see the boy removed. Tsunade ignored the Hyuga. She was sure that if she didn't, she'd likely pluck out the man's eyes with her own two fingers, and turned her attention to the Aburame clan head. I take it from Hiashi's reaction that you're the only one who voted against banishing Naruto, she stated calmly. That is correct, Hokage-sama, stated the Aburame head calmly. My clan knows full well what it is like to be disliked and persecuted for something that we hold within ourselves, he stated solemnly. Bah! Came the shrieking voice of Tamara Haruno, the head of the Haruno clan and head of the civilian council. It's just like you bug freaks to sympathize with that demon brat. If I had my way, the little monster would have been drowned as soon as it was born. Her rant was halted by a kunai, courtesy of Tsunade, whizzing past her cheek and leaving a deep gash. I'll remind the council that my predecessor and teacher's law is still in place, and I will personally enforce it on the next person stupid enough to break it in my presence, stated Tsunade coldly, getting many frightened stares from the entire council. Calm yourself, Tsunade, growled out Danzo. We are attempting to be merciful to the boy. Normally the punishment for the crimes the boy has committed is death by forced seppuku, but considering your relationship with the boy, and his numerous actions for the good of the leaf, we are only banishing him. And if I refuse to acknowledge the council's decision, returned the blonde cage, then we will be forced to take this directly to the fire daimyo, and have him punish the boy to the full extent of the law. It is your decision, Tsunade. Either agree to banish the boy or risk him being forced to kill himself as punishment. Naturally, we won't force you to make a decision so suddenly. We'll give you until the boy's banishment is due to make your decision. If he has not left by then, we will be forced to take the matter to the daimyo. And when exactly is the banishment to be enforced? Asked Tsunade in a dangerously calm voice. The boy will have 3 days after he is fully recovered from his injuries to set his affair in order before his banishment is enforced, stated Kaharu. When is the boy due to be fully recovered? Tsunade thought for a moment. Given his healing abilities, Naruto should regain consciousness within the next day or so, and be fully recovered within a week of that. She lied calmly. In all honesty, the blonde would probably be fully recovered in 2 days, but she needed the extra time to plan. Very well, we'll trust your judgment on the boy's recovery, stated Homura calmly. Will you be the one to deliver the message to the boy? She asked. Yes, growled out the slug Sanin. She wouldn't trust any of these fools to deliver the news honestly to Naruto. Good. Then this meeting is over, stated Danzo with a final victorious smirk. An hour later, Hokage's office. Quote exclamation mark quote. The enraged roar of a pissed Sannin split the night as a chair suddenly flew out the topmost window of the Hokage's tower. The chair was quickly followed by several other pieces of furniture and one unfortunate Chunin who had chosen that time to deliver a report. Within the office connected to that window, a red-faced Tsunade stomped about in a state of utter and complete rage, ignoring the screams of the free-falling Chunin. Those bastards. Those chauvinistic, idiotic, pig-headed bastards. How dare they do this to him? After everything Naruto's done for this village, they just up and order me to banish him, or they'll have him executed. She finished with a dark growl. Surely there's something we can do, Shisho. I mean, with the flimsy evidence they have, they can't honestly convince the fire daimyo to support their claims, right? Asked a worried Shizune. Her master had explained everything to her before she went on her rampage, and now the young dark-haired woman was worried sick. It's not that simple, Shizune. First, the fire daimyo is a politician first and foremost. If he sees the entire council standing against one boy, then he may decide to side with them despite the evidence, and that's not mentioning any political tricks, favors, or sway Danzo or his cronies have up their sleeves. Then there's the implied threat Danzo and the rest of those toads in the council made when they gave me the offer. She growled. Implied threat? Asked Shizune cautiously. When they offered me the chance to decide whether or not I agree to Naruto's sentence, they were issuing a challenge and a threat. To translate, it said, either agree with us now and banish the boy, or the next time the boy even steps slightly out of line, we'll do everything in our power to see him dead. Basically, they're saying that this is my only chance to let Naruto live, and if I don't do as they say, they'll pull out every dirty trick, plot, and plan they've got to see the Gaki executed at the slightest convenience, explained a grim Tsunade before sighing and continuing. I'm also pretty sure that even if I do agree to banish him, they'll constantly threaten to have him marked as a missing nin in the bingo books if I don't become their cooperative little puppet. Oh dear, stated a shocked Shizune, realizing what that meant, and it was a pretty bad situation for Naruto. If Tsunade agrees, then he'd be banished from his home for the rest of his life, but if she refused, then Naruto would be under a never-ending cloud of political scrutiny and danger. Either decision would also benefit the council. If she agrees, they'll have a constant threat against her to try and control her, and if she refuses, they'll constantly bombard her with threats to the younger blonde, making her unable to prevent any other plots without risking the blonde's life. It was pretty much a lose-lose situation for both the blondes, and a win-win for the council. If she didn't hate the council's guts at the moment, Shizune would have been impressed. It was political maneuvering at its finest. Instead, she asked, "What are we going to do?" "I don't know, Shizune. I just don't know," stated a depressed Tsunade. She looked out her now shattered window and thought to herself, "Grandfather, uncle, is this truly the village you fought so hard to found? A village of corrupt and bigoted fools who can't see past a bloody fox and their own pain to see the kind and gentle person they're seeking to destroy in every way possible. The only reason I'm even in this village is because I believed in Naruto. He's the only reason I came back and took this job, and the only reason I'm still here. That's it," mentally concluded Tsunade, as a serious and slightly evil smirk cemented on her features. Looking back toward Shizune, she barked out, "Shizune," awakening the younger woman from her own depressed thoughts. Hi, stated the surprised medic. "What was the main reason I returned to Konoha in the first place?" she asked seriously. "It was because of Naruto-kun, Shisho," responded her first apprentice, who was slightly confused by her master's questions. "And who was the one who convinced me to take this job in the first place?" continued the blonde. "Naruto," answered the still confused Shizune. "And who or what is the only reason I'm still in this village?" asked the Sannin as her smirk grew. Again, that would be Naru. Realization suddenly dawned on the black-haired apprentice. "You don't mean..." "Yes, I do, Shizune," stated a serious Tsunade. "That Gaki is the only reason I'm in this god-forsaken hole in the ground." It's no longer the place my grandfather and uncle dreamed of. The tree they worked so hard to plant has rotted all the way down to its roots. The only reason I came back here is because I thought Naruto could save this place from itself, but since that's no longer possible, I don't really see any point in staying. Besides, if those bastards think I'm going to just sit down and follow their orders while they banish one of the few people left in this world I care about, they've seriously underestimated me. I'm the Hokage for a reason, not to mention a senju and a woman besides that. I think it's about time the council learns why it's supremely stupid to mess with one of those, and suicide to mess with all three at once, she finished with a fierce growl. Shizune nodded her head. Where do we start? Tsunade took a moment to look at her first apprentice. Shizune, she said solemnly, you know you don't have to go along with this. I know how much you've wanted to settle down, start a family. I won't force you to. She was interrupted by Shizune's hand coming up to halt her speech. The younger woman looked warmly at her master and friend. Tsunade, she stated warmly, you are my family, and Naruto-kun has become very precious to me as well. Any place I stay without you two would never be home for me. If you're going, then I am as well, finished the younger woman in a serious tone. Tsunade took a moment to look at her first apprentice and longtime friend, and smiled. Glad to hear it, she stated warmly before switching into full commander mode, now get a pot of tea brewing and make it strong. If we're leaving, I'm going to make this entire village sorry for everything they've done to Naruto. We'll also need supplies, money, and a way to keep those idiots in council from declaring us missing nin. I've also got an idea or two for a couple of extra hands we can bring along. Yes, sir, stated Shizune with a quick military salute, before setting to work on the tea. Also send out 2 messengers. Send the first to the Hyuga estate with a message to Hinata to have her come to my office first thing in the morning for a meeting about the offer I asked her about. The other one goes to Jiraiya. Have them tell the old pervert that if he isn't in my office by noon tomorrow, I'll outlaw all hot springs in Konoha, have every single one of those perverted books he's written collected and burned in a public bonfire in the town square while he's tied to a stake and forced to watch, and then castrate him, heal him, and castrate him again. That ought to make sure the pervert's here on time. Hi. Called out Shizune as she finished starting the tea before heading out to alert the needed messengers. While Shizune left, Tsunade got to work on the first paperwork she'd ever been excited about doing in years. I'm going to teach those council idiots what it means to piss off a woman, especially Tsunade of the Sannin. As the old saying goes, hell has no wrath like a woman's scorn. By the time I'm done, hell will seem like a paradise compared to this place. Meanwhile, Konoha Hospital, specially secured room. Naruto Uzumaki was lying on his bed, still unconscious from his injuries. His room was well secured and guarded around the clock by at least a pair of Anbu who the Hokage trusted completely, shinobi she knew were both completely loyal to her or the office of Hokage itself, and held no grudge against the younger blonde. They were instructed to allow no one in to see the boy without first reporting it to Shizune or the Hokage herself, which included all medical staff. Resting on the foot of the bed was Shizune's pet pig Tauntaun. The little pig may be pampered, but she was still a ninja pig and had a nose better than some ninkan. She was the blonde's early warning device. If anyone came too close to the blonde that Tauntaun didn't recognize or even thought was acting suspicious, the little pig would set off a small seal in her collar that would instantly draw Tsunade and Shizune's attention to the room, as well as alert the Anbu standing guard. With all the security, Naruto could rest and recover easily without the threat of any ninja or civilian attempting to get into his room and finish what Kakashi and Sasuke had started. The 2 Anbu stationed to guard the boy had thought that the Hokage was being a bit extreme about the threat the boy was suffering from, but they soon stood corrected. It had barely been a full day and the 2 had already stopped 2 doctors and a nurse from coming in to give the blonde a sanctioned medical shot, which both discovered contained powerful poisons, and a single Junin from sneaking in through a window, thanks to Tauntaun's early warning, with a kunai ready to murder the blonde. Needless to say, both had since increased their active surveillance of the area, and when their shift ended, both would be sure to warn their replacements about the level of animosity the boy would face. While his protectors stood guard over his immobile body, Naruto's mind was very much active. Naruto's mindscape, standing before the massive cage doors that signified the Kyuubi's prison, was the annoyed form of our blonde hero. "What the hell do you want, Fox?" asked the irate blonde. "Actually, Kit, I've brought you here to strike a bargain," stated the surprisingly calm voice of the monstrous Kyuubi no Kitsune. "Why the hell should I listen to anything you say, you damned fox? You probably just want me to remove the seal so you can finish destroying Konoha," accused the blonde. A tick mark suddenly developed above the massive eyes that indicated the fox's presence. "Now listen here, you pathetic little ninkan," growled out the fox demon. "If it wasn't for me working my off to keep you alive and the actions of a few of the mortals who actually care about you, you'd be dead thanks to your so-called brother's actions, your teacher's prejudice, and that pink-haired fangirl you call a friend nearly kicking your head in. What the hell are you talking about? Sasuke wouldn't really try to kill me, and what the hell are you saying about Kakashi-sensei and Sakura-chan?" asked the annoyed and confused blonde. The fox let out a heavy sigh, before replying, "I know you're not going to like this, Kit, but you need to know who to trust. First, the wounds the Uchiha inflicted on you were all designed to kill you. The little brat was aiming to see you dead from the very beginning. As for your sensei and the pink-haired one, well, I think you'd better see for yourself." With that, the fox showed the blonde exactly what had happened since the battle in the Valley of the End, from Kakashi's betrayal, to Sakura's attempt to harm him, to Hinata standing up for him. One may ask how the fox had viewed all this, but the fox was deeply connected to all the blonde's senses, even when he was unconscious, and the fox could witness everything that occurred around the boy, even with his eyes closed. Needless to say, the blonde's world was shattered. 3 of the people he had come to view as precious had betrayed and tried to kill him. "This can't be true. You, lying," cried out the blonde desperately, though he somehow knew the great demon wasn't. "Sorry to say, Kit, but I'm not. If you can't believe me, just confirm it with the blonde Hokage of yours when you awaken," stated the fox solemnly. With those words, those undeniable words, Naruto slumped to his knees and tears began to fall from his eyes. "I guess it's true. No one really cares about me," sobbed out the broken-hearted blonde. "I wouldn't say that, Kit," stated the fox comfortingly. After all, that large-chested blonde looked ready to murder that Hitaki fool when she found out what he did. And let's not forget the purple-haired Hyuga girl who stood up to defend you when that howler monkey attempted to attack you. I'd say you've got at least 2 people who care a lot about you there." The blonde sniffled a little as he called the memories Kyuubi had shown him, and the fox was right. Tsunade and Hinata both seemed to really care for him. "Thanks, Kyuubi, I appreciate it," he whispered before a small grin appeared on his face, "but that doesn't mean I'm gonna remove the seal." A large toothy, or fangi as the case may be, grin appeared below those massive eyes, and the fox responded, "Wouldn't want you to, Kit, considering that ripping off that seal would likely kill us both. Though I may be immortal and not even the Shinigami's seal is able to truly kill me, it would still be an incredibly painful experience that would leave me a lot weaker for a long time. Something I'd like to avoid for as long as possible. Nope, we're stuck with each other until death do us part," stated the grinning fox demon. Naruto smirked. "Great, I'm pretty much married to giant demonic fuzzball. Ain't that the story of my life?" He finished with an exaggerated sigh, getting a barking laugh from the fox demon. "I'm not too happy about it either, Kit. Personally, I'd rather be stuck with the big-chested blonde Hokage of yours, at least then I'd have something fun to look at," stated the fox with a perverted giggle, causing the blonde to sweat drop. "Great. I've got the demonic version of Ero Sanin sealed in my gut," he stated while face-palming his head, before looking up at the ceiling and asking, Am I doomed to be surrounded by perverts for the rest of my life? He asked. Afraid so, Kit? Smirked the fox. Both demon and vessel shared a laugh before Naruto got a confused expression on his face. Hey Kyuubi. He asked, why are you suddenly being so nice to me? When we met in the Chunin exams you were pretty much ready to bite my head off and devour me. What's with the sudden attitude shift? The fox looked down on the young blonde with a calm expression, well as calm as an expression as a giant pair of red fox eyes could get, and spoke, when we first met Kit, I had just been woken up from my long slumber by you traipsing in and ordering me to give you my power, which naturally got me a little pissed, but after being up for a little while I started to watch what you did with the power I granted you. I have to admit you did something pretty rare, you impressed me. Most of my former containers have used my power to further their own goals, but you only used my power when there was something you wanted to protect. You never relied on it, only using it when you had no other options. Then I decided to sift through your memories and saw what your life has been like. Despite everything you've been through because of this village, all the years of loneliness and hate you've experienced, you never went down the path of anger and hatred. For a mortal to show that much resolve and strength of will is something truly impressive. To put it simply, Kit, you've earned my respect, and that's something only a very small list of mortals can claim to have done, two of which were your first and fourth Hokages. Come to think of it, you actually remind me a bit of the old woodhead and the blonde-haired speedster, finished the fox with a smug expression. The blonde was flabbergasted. He'd earned the respect of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the greatest of the tailed demon lords, and even reminded the fox of both the first and fourth Hokages. Thanks. He muttered, not really sure how to respond to the praise. That was a lot of compliments for a kid who barely received any at all. Then again, considering how his supposed sensei seemed to be just another bigoted idiot, that wasn't much of a surprise. Remembering what had started the conversation, you mentioned something about a bargain. The fox's grin returned full force. Glad you remembered that, maybe you're not as stupid as everyone thinks. Hey, it isn't my fault that those baka instructors at the academy wouldn't teach me anything. All they did was yell at me and send me out of the class at every opportunity. It wasn't until Iruka-sensei started teaching us that anyone bothered to try and teach me anything, stated the annoyed blonde. Relax, Kit, I know, stated the fox calmly. We'll have to work on that once you're back on your feet, but that can wait for later. Right now, what I'm offering you is a bloodline, stated the smirking demon. A bloodline, shouted the shocked blonde. He remembered what Kakashi-sensei, no Hataki Tem, had told him about bloodlines. They were a rare and powerful gift that only members of certain clans could use. How can you grant me one of those? Asked a confused and excited blonde. Well, right now, due to the lengths I went to keep you alive after the Uchiha whelp ran a Chidori through your lung, your body is pretty much saturated with my chakra. All I have to do is channel more of it and then immerse it into your DNA to alter it, granting you a bloodline, explained the fox. Oh, said the blonde flatly, not understanding everything the fox had just told him, but deciding to go with it, until another question popped into his head. What do you get out of this, Kyuubi? Excuse me, asked a surprised fox. Well, you said this was a bargain, right? And a bargain usually has someone giving something to someone else in exchange for some other thing or favor, stated the blonde confusingly, as if having trouble putting his thoughts into words. The fox openly stared at the blonde for a moment before it started to laugh again. You know, Kit, you might actually have a brain inside that slab of concrete you call a skull, laughed the demon. Hey, shouted the insulted blonde. Relax, Kit, all fun aside, yes, there is something I'd like you to do for me. I want you to hunt down that snake bastard Orochimaru and another person when you become strong enough and rip him into bite-sized bits, growled out the fox. What's with the serious grudge you've got for Orochi Tem and this other guy? Asked the blonde. They're the reasons you and I are stuck like this, growled out the fox. Seeing his vessel's confused expression, the fox explained, "Have you ever wondered why I attacked Konoha in the first place?" "I never really thought about it," answered the blonde Hones. Tsunade sat behind her desk, a proud smirk spread across her face. Sitting in front of her was a small stack of papers, formal decrees all bearing her signature and stamp. It had taken her the better part of the night to figure out the exact wording needed so she wouldn't leave any holes in their escape plan. The top ones read: I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage and Namakuji, Slug, Sanin, hereby name Naruto Uzumaki as my second apprentice. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, hereby promote Naruto Uzumaki to the rank of Chunin under my authority. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, hereby release Naruto Uzumaki, Tsunade Senju, and Shizune from all duties, responsibilities, and form of binding agreement to Konoha, or the nation of Hai no Kuni in general. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, hereby pardon Naruto Uzumaki, Tsunade Senju, and Shizune of all crimes against Konoha or the Fire Nation, past, present, or future, as long as I hold authority as Hokage. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, do hereby name Jiraiya of the Densetsu no Sanin my successor for the title of Hokage, if I retire, die, or am deemed as unfit for the position and a new Hokage is required. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, do hereby release the following items from the Hokage's personal vault, the Anbu storehouse, and the village storehouse into my own care until such as a time as either I or their current possessor deems fit to return them. The Forbidden Scroll of Seals, the third Hokage's monkey summoning contract, the Hokage's personal library of jutsu, the large list filled up nearly the entire large scroll. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, do hereby freely release Naruto Uzumaki, Tsunade Senju, and Shizune from their ranks and responsibilities as Konoha Shinobi, while allowing them to retain any ranks and or titles associated with their positions. I Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, do hereby ban the use of any seals on Konoha Shinobi or civilian that are designed to hinder, harm, punish, and or control said shinobi. Any information on any such seals in current use by any clan or individual must be turned into the Hokage as soon as knowledge of this act is put into effect, or the individuals involved will be tried for treason and executed. Any such seals currently in effect are to be removed as soon as this law comes into effect. Any such seals that are currently in effect and lack a removal procedure are to be studied and analyzed by the current Hokage and any seal masters under his employ to find a way to remove them. Any use or activation of such seals while they are still in effect after this decree comes into effect is to be treated as a capital offense of either attempted murder or actual murder depending on the circumstances of the use, and the user will be punished to the full extent of the law. Financial restitutions of 1 million ryo will be paid each shinobi, and 500,000 to each civilian, to those who have had these seals placed on them in the past. The amounts will be paid for by the body or bodies in charge of placing said seals onto said victims. Tsunade couldn't help but smile at her most recent decree. She'd created it for two reasons. One was because Naruto had made a promise to Neji about ensuring that that wretched caged bird seal was removed, and she was not about to make her baby brother a liar. Two was to stir up some chaos with the Hyuga clan. If her first meeting turns out the way she hoped, then Hiashi would be royally pissed when he found out, and, decree or no decree, he'd send out people to track them down. Hopefully her little decree will keep Hiashi off her and her little group's back. Sitting next to the stack of signed decrees was a smaller stack waiting for her signature. These were ready to go, but would have to wait until after her meeting with a certain shy young Hyuga. Hearing someone enter her office, the elder blonde looked up and grinned at her first apprentice. Shizune, have you finished applying the seals I gave you? She asked. Yes, my lady, answered Shizune. I applied them to the mission distribution and storage rack just as you instructed, and told the Chunin on duty there it was simply an upgrade for the security seals involved. I've also tested it thoroughly. And, questioned Tsunade, She may not be a seal master on Jiraiya's level, but she took pride in her ability to create new seals. It worked perfectly, Shisho, answered Shizune, holding up a large scroll. This receiver scroll now shows us a complete list of all current missions in the rack along with all relevant mission details, and all we need to do is channel some chakra into the correct section and we can summon any mission we choose from the rack. I tested it out on a couple of D ranks assigned by some council members and it worked perfectly. Glad to hear it, stated the Hokage. Those seals would allow her and her team access to missions to both help improve their skills, make political allies, and earn a little cash on the side, all right from under Konoha's nose. Speaking of cash, what is the current holdings of Konohaga's treasury at the moment? She asked suddenly. Shizune fished around a small pile of document before finding the one she needed and answered, the treasury currently contains 952,682,522 ryo. Tsunade began to rub her hands together greedily before stating, I do believe Konoha owes me, you, and Naruto a hefty retirement package. Wouldn't you agree, Shizune? Asked the Godime. Oh, absolutely, Hokage-sama, answered Shizune with a slightly evil grin. Shizune may be one of to keep Tsunade in line, but even she had her faults. One of which was a significantly greedy nature when it came to money matters. In her defense, it was probably developed as a defensive measure to prevent Tsunade from gambling away every penny they ever earned. Excellent. Please fill out the paperwork to have 500 million released into the Hokage's care. Listed under Black Ops or some other necessary and secretive function, ordered the Hokage. At once, Shisho, stated Shizune, before she remembered something. Before I go, Hinata just arrived, and she's waiting outside. Good, send her in on your way out, answered the slug Sanin. After giving her master and longtime friend a final bow, the young woman left the room, and a few moments later, young Hinata Hyuga stepped in. The young girl seemed to be more than a little nervous at being called to her office, and it showed when the girl meekly spoke up. "You wished to see me, Hokage-sama?" She asked without raising her head. "Yes, Hinata, I did. Please take a seat," she said, indicating the chair resting in front of her desk. After the young heiress was fully seated, Tsunade spoke up again. Now Hinata, I'm not going to beat around the bush on this. The council, in their infinite wisdom, have decided to banish Naruto from Konoha. I expect them to make a formal announcement sometime in the next day or two, she stated bluntly, not letting any emotion show on her face. What? But why? Asked the young Hyuga, tears already forming in her light lavender eyes. The official reason they're giving is because Naruto used excessive force in bringing back the Uchiha, answered the Hokage. That's ridiculous. Naruto-kun was more severely injured than the Uchiha. Hinata responded. Those were my word exactly. Now I have some things I need to ask you, and if your answers are what I think they are, then I have an offer you may like. Interested? Asked the Hokage. Hinata stared at the elder blonde for a moment before slowly nodding her head. Good. Now first question. Do you like Naruto, and I mean really like him, as in more than a friend? Blushing like a tomato, the young Hyuga began to hyperventilate before she calmed down and slowly nodded her head, still blushing heavily. If you had the chance, would you go with him, even if it meant leaving your family and friends behind? Continued the Hokage. This question caused Hinata to stop for a moment. She thought of her family and her friend. Family? What family? She questioned herself. Most of them hate me for either being too weak or for just being a member of the main house. The only ones there who even remotely care about me now are Neji and maybe Hanabi, and my relationship with both of them is limited. Father would probably be glad to see me gone so he could name Hanabi as the new clan heir. As for friends, the only people I'm really close with are Shino, Kiba, and Kurenai-sensei. Shino's too logical to really miss me much and he'd understand, and Kiba's always been too forceful about trying to be in a relationship with me despite my constant refusals. Kurenai-sensei's been like a mother to me, but I'm sure she'd understand. She supported my relationship with Naruto all this time. Taking a deep breath as her train of thought concluded, the young Hyuga heiress nodded her head yet again, though this time with a little more resolve than before. Grinning widely, Tsunade spoke to the girl. Good, that's just the answer I was looking for. Now here's the offer. How'd you like to become my third apprentice? This question caught Hinata off guard. Excuse me, but why would you want someone else like me? Well, from what I've read, you have excellent chakra control, something that every good medic needs, and a lot of potential from what I've seen in your records. Second, you've got an attitude that I like, if we can break you of that nervousness. Finally, you care a lot about that little Gaki who I've named my second apprentice. Why, you've named Naruto-kun your second apprentice? Asked a confused Hinata. That's right, Hinata-chan, and as you know, where an apprentice isn't welcome, neither is their master, and since Konoha is now banishing my second apprentice, well, you see where that train of thought leads, explained Tsunade as an evil grin spread across her face. As realization of what Tsunade was talking about dawned on Hinata, a dozen thoughts surged through her mind. She's planning on leaving Konoha with Naruto, and she's inviting me to come with them. I'd get to travel with Naruto-kun, learn under one of the greatest shinobi of our time, and spend lots of time with Naruto-kun. I could finally get a chance. I'd have to leave Konoha, but I'd get to stay with Naruto-kun. As her thoughts settled, a small smile spread across the girl's lips. Where do I sign T Tsunade Shisho? Tsunade smiled as she handed the young girl a set of papers that would make everything official. While the young girl filled out the needed paperwork, Tsunade turned her attention to the small pile of papers she'd left unsigned. Grabbing the top sheet, she began to sign and stamp each one. I, Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage and Namakuji Sanin, hereby name Hinata Hyuga as my third apprentice. I, Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, hereby promote Hinata Hyuga to the rank of Chunin under my authority. I, Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, hereby release Hinata Hyuga from all duties, responsibilities, and form of binding agreement to Konoha, or the nation of Hai no Kuni in general. I, Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, hereby pardon Hinata Hyuga of all crimes against Konoha or the Fire Nation, past, present, or future, as long as I hold authority as Hokage. I, Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, do hereby freely release Hinata Hyuga from her rank and responsibilities as a Konoha shinobi, while allowing her to retain any ranks and/or titles associated with her position. I, Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage, do hereby emancipate Hinata Hyuga from the Hyuga clan under my authority and place Tsunade Senju as the girl's primary legal guardian. Stamping the final command with the Hokage's official seal, Tsunade looked up to find her newest apprentice had finished signing the last document. Giving the girl a warm grin, well, now that that's done, Hinata Hyuga, you are now officially my third apprentice. Welcome aboard. She finished with a warm grin, which the shy girl softly returned. Thank you Tsunade Shisho, I'll do my best not to disappoint you, responded the girl meekly. We're seriously going to have to work on those self-esteem and confidence issues, thought Tsunade. Alright Hinata, my first order as your sensei is to try and build up your confidence. I see a lot of potential in you, young lady, but that's worth nothing unless you can see it in yourself. The least I want out of you is for you to get that stutter of yours under control, she stated in a strong tone. Aye, the girl stopped mid-sentence. She took a few deep breaths and then, I'll do my best Shisho, she managed without a stutter. That's all I want Hinata, I can't ask for anything more, she said warmly. Tsunade's years of medical knowledge weren't limited to physical medicine. She also had more than a small understanding on human psychology. From Kurenai's reports on the girl, Her home life was filled with constant insults and degrading comments by a father who saw her as an utter failure. That kind of abusive environment bred two kinds of children: those who are angry at the world and those who were crushed by it. It seemed that Hinata was one of the later cases. The best way to help children like that was slow and steady care, plenty of support, and just being there for them when they needed it. Anyo, came the young girl's quiet question. Yes, Hinata, asked Tsunade. When will we be leaving? Asked the younger girl, managing only a slight stutter at the beginning. I'll need a few days to finish wrapping things up after Naruto awakens, which should be anytime now, answered the slug Sanin. Before she could continue, Shizune entered the room again. Shisho, I just finished visiting Naruto at the hospital, his vitals are recovering. Given everything involving Naruto, he should be awake within the hour, stated the dark-haired apprentice. Well, speak of the devil, stated the grinning Sanin. She then remembered her promise to the diminutive ninkan Pakun. The woman wrote a quick message on some spare parchment and summoned a slug. Turning the small gastropod, she quickly gave it a short set of orders. Please deliver this message to a ninkan called Pakun in the ninkan summons realm, she ordered. After a quick bowing of her eye stalks, the slug disappeared in a small puff of smoke. Turning her attention back to her apprentices, Tsunade smiled. Now let's go make sure our favorite blonde is greeted by a few friendly faces when he first wakes up. I think he'll need them after the news I have to deliver, she finished somberly. Konoha Hospital, main lobby. Shikamaru Nara was not having the best couple of days. After he'd been released from the hospital a day ago after recovering from his fight with the sound ninja Yuya, he'd set out to speak with the rest of his team and apologize for his failure as a leader. It had actually started out well enough. Thanks to Tsunade's intervention, Choji was recovering nicely and would even be able to leave the hospital after a few days of rest. His large friend had been cheerfully chowing down on anything he could get his hands on to help regain his strength. The young Akamichi heir had put no blame on the young Nara for what had happened. He was just glad everyone had survived and the mission had been a success. Then there was Neji. The young Hyuga prodigy had likewise put no blame on Shikamaru, stating that it was merely the risk involved in taking on such a mission. Kiba had been a royal pain in the constantly how he was going to prove to Hinata how superior he was to Naruto. The Nara had listened for as long as he could to the damned dog user's ranting, but highly doubted the mission would change Hinata's favorite. The girl had been head over heels for Naruto since the academy. Shikamaru doubted one mission and one fight would change that. Lee had been troublesome. That word seemed to be designed for the spandex-wearing taijutsu expert. The only member he'd been unable to see was Naruto, and now his inability to find the blonde was getting even more troublesome. Since yesterday, rumors had begun circulating about the blonde being banished for some foul-up on the mission, and Shikamaru didn't like that. He was team leader, so he should be the one shouldering the blame, not his knuckle-headed friend. Something was off here. In fact, something had been off involving the way the blonde was treated from the very beginning. The young Nara wasn't a genius for nothing. He'd noticed the constant state of animosity the whole village seemed to radiate against his friend. The sheer curiosity of it all had actually led him to start his unusual friendship with the blonde. Over the years he'd gotten to know the blonde. He'd found no reason for the blonde to suffer the kind of animosity he suffered in the village. Whenever he'd questioned his father about the elder man would roll of some string about how the blonde was a troublemaker. That had never flown with Shikamaru. Even before his friendship with the blonde, he knew no kid, no matter how troublesome, would normally be on the receiving end of that kind of animosity. After getting to know the blonde for a little while, all the explanations started to make even less sense. The blonde was a nice guy. Sure, he was a little loud and liked to pull pranks, but Shikamaru had deduced them as ways to gain attention rather than acting out. Now, with the rumors of him being banished and the pleased looks most of the older villagers were sporting, he knew that something was seriously off. and the only person who could probably tell him the exact reasoning was the blonde. Unfortunately, even finding the blonde was proving difficult. From what he'd found out, the blonde had been badly injured bringing back Sasuke, and was now hospitalized, but no one seemed to be able, or willing, to tell him just where. Listen, I'm an old friend of Naruto's, and there's some very important I need to discuss with him. The young shadow manipulator tried to reason with the main desk clerk. I'm sorry, sir, but Mr. Uzumaki's room number is being held due to certain conditions regarding his treatment. The orders came directly from the Hokage. Came the same uninformative reply. Troublesome, muttered the young Nara as he turned to head toward the Hokage's tower. Hopefully she'd be able to shed some light on what the hell was going on. As Shikamaru was heading for the main entranceway, he caught sight of just the person he was looking for. Tsunade had just strolled into the lobby, followed by Hinata and Shizune on either side. Tsunade-sama, called out the young Nara. Turning toward the caller, Tsunade instantly recognized the young Nara clan heir. Shikamaru-san, what seems to be the trouble? I've been trying to find Naruto for the past day or so, but it seems his room's being kept secret on your orders, answered the Nara bluntly. That's true. There was an incident after Naruto fought Sasuke, and I've put his room under security for his own protection, answered the Hokage as she continued to walk. If you need to see him, please come with us. He seems to be close to regaining consciousness and I have some important things to discuss with him when that happens. The young Nara nodded his head and fell into formation behind the other two. After a few moments of walking, the Nara asked, do these things you need to discuss with him have anything to do with the rumors going around about Naruto being banished, and what was this incident that led to such high security measures? Yes, it does, answered the Hokage sadly. As for the incident, Naruto was betrayed by his sensei, Hitaki Kakashi, and left for dead. This news shocked the young Nara to his core. Loyalty was something that was deeply ingrained into every Konoha shinobi, and to hear of a Junin sensei betraying his students, breaking one of the most important bonds in shinobi society, was nearly unthinkable. What the hell is going on? Mentally questioned the young Nara heir. The four shinobi came to rest outside of a single room. Cat, bear, report. Came the Hokage's crisp orders. Instantly, two Anbu wearing the appropriate animal masks appeared in front of the Hokage, both bowing on a single knee in respect. Cat was the one to speak up. Hokage-sama, there have been no incidents since last night. I believe that anyone further involved has either given up after realizing we will not allow them to continue or have heard the rumors circulating about the boy's banishment and have decided there was no further need to make an attempt on his life. That last part was what had hooked the two young ninjas' attention. Hinata was consumed with worry and Shikamaru grew even more confused. Both were now questioning the reasons behind the level of animosity their friend was receiving. Tsunade nodded her head at this information and made a quick hand motion ordering both Anbu back to their posts. As the four shinobi entered the room, Taunton leapt off the bed she was sharing with the young blonde and happily hopped into Shizune's waiting arms, before snuggling deep into them. Tsunade took a seat by the blonde's bed while the rest remained standing. Leaning against a nearby wall, Shikamaru was the first to break the silence. Tsunade-sama, what the hell is going on? Asked the young Nara, deciding to go blunt on this one. Being political or cunning would be way too troublesome. First, there are these rumors about Naruto being banished and nearly every adult in the village is smiling like it's Christmas come early. Then there's his own sensei betraying him, and now people are making attempts on his life while he's bedridden. Why the hell does this whole village seem to have it out for Naruto? A look that seemed to mix anger and sorrow crossed the elder Senju's face before she answered slowly, I'm sorry Shikamaru, but the only one who can answer your question is Naruto himself. The only thing I can tell you is that a law made by my sensei forbids anyone from speaking of it without Naruto's permission under pain of death. Before Shikamaru could respond, the younger blonde began to stir. The younger blonde slowly opened his eyes to find the image of Tsunade smiling down on him. Smiling up at the older blonde, he spoke up, "Hey Ba-chan, how you doing?" He grinned up at her. Tsunade smiled down at the blonde she'd come to view as her little brother. "Fine Gaki, just fine. How about you? You feeling okay?" she asked concerned. "Just great Ba-chan, a little tired and a little sore but otherwise I'm good." "Glad to hear it," she said, smiling sadly at the blonde. Sitting up, the blonde looked at Tsunade confused. "What's the matter Ba-chan, you seem pretty upset." "Naruto, I've got some bad news," answered the slug Sanin with tears starting to form in her eyes. "What's the matter Ba-chan?" questioned the blonde, a sinking feeling forming in the bottom of his chest. "Naruto, the council has given me orders to have you banished from Konoha," stated the teary-eyed Tsunade, causing both Naruto and Shikamaru to drop their jaws in shock. But you're the Hokage. They can't order you around, that's against the rules," exclaimed a desperate Naruto. "Yes, but they've threatened me that if I don't have you banished they will take the case to the fire daimyo and move to have you executed. I can't risk losing you," she breathed out at the end. Naruto stared at her for a minute, then his head dropped. "The reason they're banishing me, it's because of that, isn't it Ba-chan?" he asked quietly. "I'm afraid so. They're officially proclaiming some pumped-up charge about you using excessive force to bring the Uchiha back, but yes, that is the root of it," she stated solemnly. Naruto continued to look down at his lap as his hands clutching the sheets for dear life. Slowly his shoulders began to shake and tears began to fall from his eyes. The blonde slowly began to sob uncontrollably. In an instant Tsunade's arms were wrapped securely around Naruto, pulling him into a comforting embrace as the younger blonde continued to sob into her chest. After a few minutes of sobbing, the blonde managed to sob out a few words. "What am I going to do now Ba-chan? What am I going to do?" he sobbed. "Shish. It's going to be okay Naruto," she whispered soothingly into his ear. "There's no way in hell I'm going to let those council teams get away with this. I refuse to allow you to go through this on your own." "Why you're not?" asked a still tear-streaked blonde looking up at the older woman. Tsunade smiled down at her favorite blonde and gently wiped away the tears lining his cheeks. "You'd better believe I'm not. In case you've forgotten, you're the only reason I came back to Konoha. If those teams thinks I'm going to sit by and let them banish my little brother, they've got another thing coming. Now I can't go into any details here, but I need your help to make sure things go smoothly." "What can I do Ba-chan?" asked the blonde, his voice regaining some of its usual life and bluster. Tsunade smiled. "Your banishment doesn't officially start until after you're fully healed, so I need you to buy us some time and play sick. Just lie around in bed all day for the next couple of days, okay?" Before the blonde could respond, Kyuubi's voice echoed through his mind. "That's actually a pretty good idea. It'll give us some time to work on your education, and for me to teach you how to work your bloodline." The blonde seemed ready to speak, but Kyuubi cut him off again. "Don't talk out loud, Kit, just think and I'll hear you. We wouldn't want your friends thinking you've gone bonkers." The blonde mentally responded. "Kyuubi, how the hell are you talking to me? Slight side effect of generating your bloodline, Kit, it linked us telepathically. Now I believe it's time you explained what happened between us to your busty grandma. By the way, that was a nice hug. I'm going to be enjoying memories of being buried in that valley for years to come," finished the fox with a perverted laugh. Returning to reality, the blonde found Tsunade staring at him with a worried expression on her face. Ba-chan, can we talk alone for a minute? It involves that," he whispered quietly to her. Tsunade looked at him for a moment before she turned to Shizune. "Shizune, take Shikamaru and Hinata outside for a moment. I need to do a quick checkup on Naruto and I'll need a little privacy," she ordered. Getting a nod, the elder apprentice ushered the other two genin out the door, much to Hinata's disappointment and Shikamaru's growing confusion. As the door closed, Tsunade's attention returned to the younger blonde sitting in front of her. Okay Gaki, what's going on, and how does it involve the fox? Naruto actually broke into a small grin before he stated, "You're not gonna believe this, but while I was out I got drawn into my mindscape and." Meanwhile, outside the room, Shikamaru was standing across the hall from the room while Shizune and Hinata stood on either side. Finally deciding to break the silence that seemed to fill the hallway, Shikamaru spoke up, "So, does that happen to be the secret the Hokage told us about while we were waiting?" asked the young Nara. Shizune looked up at the young Chunin and nodded her head ever so slightly. As the silence returned, each of the three waiting ninja was wrapped in their own thoughts, all concerning Naruto. Shikamaru was trying to solve the puzzle that was Naruto Uzumaki. Now normally Shikamaru may have dismissed things like this as troublesome, but the young Nara just couldn't seem to get this mystery out of his head. What is this secret? There's no way Naruto could have done something severe enough to merit this kind of treatment. If he did, then Naruto would have shown some sign of guilt, and keeping it a secret would have been a moot point since he would have been at fault. There's also the fact that he's been on the receiving end of this treatment for as long as I've known him, and no kid could do something that would cause this level of animosity. That leaves two main options. Either a relative of his did something and the blame is being transferred to Naruto, or something happened when Naruto was either born or was a kid and somehow he is being blamed for it. Naruto's an orphan, so the first option isn't likely unless his heritage was sealed or people are making an assumption given his name or his appearance. Uzumaki, that name doesn't sound familiar, and if anyone had done something worth that kind of hatred they'd be pretty well known, and the only blondes ever really mentioned in Konoha's history are the Yamanaka clan and the Yondaime, and being related to either wouldn't generate this kind of scorn. That leaves option 2. But what do I know about Naruto's childhood? The only thing I really know about him is that he was born on the day of the Kyuubi attack. Could that be it? Could everyone think Naruto is somehow related to the Kyuubi? That doesn't make any sense. The only thing about him that remotely resembles a fox are those weird birthmarks on his cheek. There's no way that would lead to this kind of hatred. There has to be something more to this, but what? Hinata was also trying to puzzle out the mystery behind Naruto's treatment, but her thoughts were more concerned for the blonde's current status than the reasons behind it. Oh Naruto-kun, why does everyone seem to be so set against you? You've always been so kind, so nice to everyone around you, but they still treat you so badly. I wish I could have had the courage to be near you sooner, to show you you had someone who would be there for you. I promise from now on I'll never leave your side. I'll be there to protect and help you in any way I can. Shizune was more concerned with recent events, since she already knew the blonde's secret. As she thumbed through the reports the Anbu guards had given her, her thoughts were less than pleased. This is definitely bad. I didn't think that the village had this level of animosity toward Naruto. Doctors and nurses trying to poison him in his bed, active and retired shinobi trying to sneak in and attack him, this does not bode well. Even with all the security measures Tsunade's taking to make sure Konoha can't officially pursue us, there's still the chance of some ninja deciding to take matters in their own hands. Hopefully Tsunade's reputation will keep most of those from trying anything, and the fact that actually plotting any attempts to go against her orders would be treason will keep any large groups from forming. There's still the threat of the council forming a band of ninja beneath the table to attack us, but that'll take time, and they won't be able to create too large a group either, or they'll risk being detected. Hopefully our team will be strong enough to handle any group they send. Now there's also Naruto's condition. After all that's happened, I'm not surprised he's so shaken up, but what was that he whispered to Tsunade? I'll have to ask her later. The three ninja were quickly pulled out of their thoughts as a new voice made itself known. Excuse me, but is this the room of one Naruto Uzumaki? Back inside the room, a slightly stunned Tsunade sat in her chair, one hand resting in her lap while the other rubbed the bridge of her nose. Okay, just to make sure I've got this all clear. While you were unconscious and recovering in your room, you got dragged into your mindscape and talked to Kyuubi. The fox has actually come to respect you because of everything that's happened and told you about Haruno, Uchiha, and Hitaki's actions while you were out of it. The fox offered you a bargain. He'd give you a bloodline if you'd help him kill my tem of a former teammate and a second party who were actually responsible for the Kyuubi attack 14 years ago. Does that about cover it? Asked the elder blonde while she rubbed her nose to forestall the headache she felt coming. Pretty much, Ba-chan, but you forgot to mention how the fox and I have a mental link now and how the oversized fuzzball's a total pervert, finished Naruto with a grin. Tsunade's promises had eased the blonde's doubts enough that he was able to return to a semblance of his usual high spirits. Kami, can't anything be simple with you? Asked the elder blonde while she rubbed her temples, though she didn't hide the grin that had spread across her face. Afraid not, answered the younger blonde, before his voice dropped slightly. Hey Ba-chan. I know how much Konoha loves bloodlines. Do you think if we told the council about mine, they'd let me stay? He asked with a hint of hope in his voice. Tsunade looked down at him sadly and shook her head. I'm afraid that's not the likeliest solution. They'd probably either claim it was the Kyuubi's doing, which in this case they'd be right for once in their lives, and use it to have you executed, or they'd order sperm samples be taken from you so they could impregnate some civilian women to gain your bloodline and then banish you once the fertilization was a success. But what if we told them the truth about Kyuubi's attack, that it wasn't his fault? Asked the blonde desperately. They'd never believe us. They've lived in hatred and fear of the Kyuubi as a rampaging monster for so long that accepting any other solution would be impossible for them, she answered sadly. So I guess there's no way I'm gonna get to stay, huh? Asked the blonde in a depressed fashion. Afraid not, answered Tsunade before she reached out and placed a comforting hand on the blonde's shoulder, but like I said before, I'm not letting you go through this alone. The blonde rubbed his eyes with the back of his sleeve, before smiling up at the elder blonde. Thanks Ba-chan, he said softly. Tsunade smiled down at him before ruffling his hair good-naturedly. Don't worry about it Gaki. She smiled down at him. However, their warm, heartfelt moment was interrupted by Shizune's voice coming from behind the door. Tsunade-sama, Naruto has some more guests. Guests? Wondered Tsunade aloud. Naruto's room was supposed to be a secret. What kind of guests? She asked. The canine kind, came Shizune's response. That threw Tsunade for a momentary loop before she remembered her message to Pakun. It's alright, I'm done. You can all come in, she answered. The door opened slowly and in walked 3 dogs followed by Shizune, Hinata, and Shikamaru. The first dog Naruto instantly recognized as the small pug he currently owed his life to, Pakun. Naruto couldn't help but notice that the Hittite the dog wore across his head was now blank. Following him was the biggest dog he'd ever seen in his life. She was huge, easily standing at least 5, maybe 6 feet tall at the shoulders and a good 7 feet long from tip to tail. She had short, dull, silver-blue fur covering most of its long lean form except for a few splashes of black across her face, chest, and paws. Look up Great Dane for an appropriate image. The giant hound also wore a blank Hittite wrapped around her neck, a small silver vest across her large back, with the kanji for silver on it, and had a slightly longer than average tanto strapped to her back. Bringing up the rear of the canine procession was a large collie with a large scroll strapped to its back and a blank Hittite wrapped around her throat. Pakun hopped up onto Naruto's lap and gave the boy a short sniff. Hey pup, glad to see you're feeling better, came the small pug's grizzled greeting. Only because of you and your squad Pakun, thanks for saving me when Hitaki Tem left me for dead. I seriously owe you one. Sorry about messing up your relationship with Hitaki and causing you so much trouble. I can't imagine he's taking you saving me well, stated the blonde as he reached out and started to pet the small dog's head in gratitude. Don't worry about it, pup. You didn't deserve that kind of treatment, and Hataki can kiss my furry. Actually, speaking of that Tem, he's actually part of the reason we're here, and part of the reason we need to speak to you, responded the pug. He easily jumped off the blonde's lap and stepped in front of the large dog. Naruto Uzumaki, allow me to introduce you to Ginkgo-sama, current head of the Ninkan summoning contract. Greetings, young Uzumaki, stated the large dog in a strong but feminine voice, as she gave the young blonde a short bow. It's a pleasure, Ginkgo-sama, stated the blonde, returning the bow. What is it you needed to talk to me about? You see, we Ninkan prize loyalty above all else, and Hataki's, the large dog practically growled out the name, actions against you violate everything our kind stands for. For such a crime there is only one punishment, complete banishment from our contract and those of our allies. Both Shizune and Tsunade gave small gasps at this, while Naruto and the rest of the ninja looked confused. It was Naruto, unsurprisingly, who broke the silence. I'm sorry, but what does complete banishment mean? That he can't summon your kind again? Questioned the blonde. Tsunade answered for the dog. Not just that, Naruto. Complete banishment from a contract means that not only will Kakashi never be able to summon again, but neither will any of his children or their children as long as they bear the Hataki name. Added to that, most summons will shun someone who's earned this level of punishment. Basically, that means Hataki's entire clan will never be able to sing a summoning contract again. Wow, Hataki may be a jerk, but I don't think his kids deserve to be punished for his actions, stated Naruto thoughtfully. Ginkgo actually smiled. At least Naruto thought it was a smile, at that. It seems Pakun was not lying when he said you were an honorable one, Uzumaki, but that's beside the point. You see, the Ninkan clan has been the summons for the Hataki clan for many generations, and now with Kakashi and his ilk now forbidden from signing our contract, we are in need of a new summoner, and Pakun has suggested you for that position, she finished calmly. Me? Asked a surprised Naruto. But why me, and I've already signed the Toad's contract? Can a person even have multiple contracts? To answer your questions, pup, yes, humans can have multiple contracts. In fact, in ancient times, before your villages were founded, there were ninja who specialized in signing multiple summoning contracts and working with dozens of different breeds of summons. They were called the Shokuno, summons kings, in honor of their strong relationship with large numbers of different summons. Sadly, their kind faded away with time. The sheer amount of chakra needed for someone to sign, maintain, and effectively use so many contracts was enough to drive their path to extinction. As for why we chose you, Pakun told me of you, and the strong loyalty you've shown. I have also spoken with Gamabunta of the Toads, and he has spoken quite highly of your loyalty. Speaking of how you fought the One Tail by his side to protect a friend, and how you single-handedly stood against a powerful servant of Manda's summoner to protect the elder blonde. His sons also spoke highly of you and how you seek to defend a village that treats you so poorly in order to protect the few you care for, answered the large dog honestly. Actually, stated a now depressed Naruto, I won't be protecting Konoha any longer. I've been banished. This statement caused the great Dan sitting in front of him to raise her eyebrow. Why? She asked simply. The official reason is because I used excessive force to bring back Sasuke, answered the blonde. Pakun audibly growled at this. That's bull crap. You were at least twice as injured as that little brat in the fight, growled out the pug. My thoughts exactly, snorted out Tsunade. If that's not the true reason, then what is? Asked Ginto, never losing her calm voice. Well, it's because, the blonde trailed off slightly while rubbing his stomach. Because you hold the Kyuubi no Kitsune sealed inside you? Asked the large dog. That caused an instant reaction from the other two teenagers in the room. Hinata fainted dead off, and Shikamaru's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. You weren't supposed to say that out loud, shouted the blonde. Forgive me, I didn't know it was a secret. apologized the dog, her voice never losing its calm edge. Meanwhile, Shikamaru's brain was going a mile a minute. Naruto's got the Kyuubi sealed inside of him. That explains it. That's why all the adults treat him like the plague. But Naruto's not the Kyuubi, is he? No, that doesn't make any sense. If he was the Kyuubi, he wouldn't have suffered through all the abuse this village had put him through. I need more information. Shikamaru slowly took a deep breath before he spoke up. Naruto, mind explaining what she just said? Asked the young Nara clan heir. Naruto instantly went through his brain, searching for a lie, an excuse, anything to avoid telling his friend the truth and having him hating him like the rest of the village. Suddenly the blonde felt a hand rest on his shoulder. He turned to see Tsunade, who'd just put Hinata in a chair by his bed. Naruto, she said soothingly, I think you should tell them the truth. But Ba-chan, started the blonde, before Tsunade caught him off guard. I know you're scared that he and Hinata will hate you like most of the village seems to, but they deserve the truth. Besides, I doubt after you're gone, the council will keep the Sandame's law around any longer than they have to, and I know they won't give them the whole truth. I think this may be your best bet to make sure your friends know the whole truth, she explained calmly. The blonde stared at her for a while, face filled with doubts as he tried to make up some excuse, some reason to avoid the truth, but he eventually nodded his head, understanding her point. Slowly taking in a few deep breaths, the blonde stared at Shikamaru for a few moments before, you remember when my birthday is, and what they taught us about the Kyuubi attack in the academy? He asked. Shikamaru nodded his head slowly, October 10th, the same day as the Kyuubi attack, and they taught us that the Yondaime killed the Kyuubi, sacrificing himself to slay it. I'm taking that wasn't the truth, or at least not the whole truth. The blonde slowly shook his head. No, it's not, answered the blonde. You see, the Kyuubi is a being of pure chakra, unkillable by any means, mortal or otherwise. Instead of killing it, the Yondaime sacrificed himself to seal it away in the only vessel strong enough to hold it. An infant whose umbilical cord had just been cut, answered the blonde as he lifted his shirt and channeled some chakra to reveal the seal on his stomach. This is that seal. The thing that keeps the Kyuubi sealed inside me and marks me is its Jinchuriki, a human sacrifice to protect the village. OGG told me that the fourth wanted me to be seen as a hero for what I contain, for protecting the village, finished the blonde. I see, and the villagers, he trailed off. Shikamaru was starting to understand, and he didn't like what he was learning. They see me as the Kyuubi reborn, the fox trapped in a human shell. That's why OGG made that law, forbidding anyone from talking about my relationship with the fox. He hoped I'd be able to at least have a normal childhood, but, stated the blonde sadly as his voice trailed off. He underestimated how much humans hate and fear what they don't understand, finished Shikamaru angrily, recalling the times his own parents had told him to stay away from the blonde. And now they're banishing just for having the fox sealed inside you? He asked, getting a nod from the blonde. Shikamaru suddenly shouted and rammed his fist into a nearby wall, leaving a large spiderweb of cracks. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, growled out the young Nara. Naruto was more than a little surprised by his friend's angry action, especially since it wasn't directed at him. You don't hate me now? Questioned the blonde quietly. The young Nara turned toward his longtime friend and shook his head. Of course not, answered Shikamaru. You're no demon. Anyone who took even a second to talk to you would know that, and we've been friends for too long for me to even think that about you. You're just a good-natured buffoon with a serious ramen addiction, finished the young Nara with a small grin. Naruto quickly rubbed the back of his eyes to keep the tears from flowing. Thanks, Shika. I just hope that Hinata agrees with yo. His statement was cut off as said Hyuga tackled him into a large hug. It seems the young Hyuga heiress had woken up when Naruto had started his story and had quickly made her decision on the matter. Naruto-kun is Naruto-kun, anyone who can't see past the fox is a baka, sobbed out the young Hyuga heiress as she buried her face in his chest. That is until she realized what she was doing and promptly fainted again, this time her face showing a major blush. I think you can take that as a heartfelt agreement with me, answered Shikamaru with a smug grin. Naruto could only nod as he helped resettle Hinata into her seat. I'm glad that matter has been resolved, came the voice of Ginkgo, who everyone had forgotten about in the sudden excitement. Yeah, sorry about snapping at you like that, Ginkgo-san, I was just a little surprised, apologized the blonde. No harm done, young Uzumaki, reassured the large dog. Now, as I was saying, is the fact that you hold the Kyuubi the reason they are banishing you? Hi, answered the blonde in a depressed tone. Well, then you are at no fault for it, so it doesn't affect my decision to offer you our contract, finished the large Dane. But doesn't you clan serve Konoha? Isn't that why you have its symbol on your forehead protectors? Asked the blonde. Our Hittite bear the mark of our master's village or of his clan, answered Pakun. They are a mark of our loyalty to them, not a village. That is correct, agreed Ginkgo. You have shown loyalty beyond what many humans have seen are capable of. That is what makes you worthy as our summoner. Naruto blushed at the praise before he nodded his head. I'd be honored to accept the ninkan summoning contract, he said with a low bow. Excellent, stated Ginkgo, before she motioned her head for the collie bearing the contract to step forward. The smaller dog gently hopped onto the edge of Naruto's bed and shrugged of the contract so it rested in the blonde's lap. Naruto slowly unrolled the scroll until he came to a blank segment. As the blonde looked at the scroll, he noticed that over half the names on the scroll read out Hitaki, which wasn't surprising considering it was a clan scroll. He also noticed that Kakashi's name, instead of being black or red for a former or current contract holder, was written in a venomous green. Biting his fingers, Naruto quickly wrote his name in the blank spot next to Kakashi's before placing his hand print directly below it. Rerolling the scroll, Naruto returned it to the collie, who took it without a word. In an instant, all three of the Ninkan's Hittite adopted a swirl in the center. The contract is complete, stated Ginkgo. I and the rest of my clan look forward to fighting by your side in the future, Naruto-sama, she finished with a low bow, followed closely by the collie and Pakun. Thank you, stated the blonde quietly, returning the bow. I'll do everything in my power to prove myself worthy of this great gift, he spoke softly. Ginkgo merely smiled at him again. I'm sure you will, child, I am sure you will. Now before I go, I have a final gift to give you, she stated calmly, before shrugging her shoulders to bring the tanto on her back to a position where she grabbed it with her mouth before carrying it forward and presenting it to Naruto. The blonde slowly took the blade in both hands and held it before him. That is the Hako Chakura II White Light Chakra Saber, an ancient weapon my clan have given to their summoner since our contract was forged. Its blade is sharp beyond compare, and when chakra is channeled through it, it will release a stream of pure white chakra. Summon me when you are ready and fully recovered, and I will teach you the techniques for it. Hitaki mentioned that blade before, saying it was a family heirloom. He also said that it was destroyed in the war by an Iwa nin, stated the Hokage. Ginkgo snorted, as if a blade like this could be broken so easily by human hands. Kakashi lost the right to bear that blade when his cowardice and bigotry cost his friend his life. It was only because of his father's abilities and many great deeds as our summoner that we allowed him to retain the contract after that. Even then he was limited to only a single pack of ninkan until he proved himself worthy of redemption. Obviously that was a mistake, she finished with a slight growl. Ginkgo-san, came our young blonde's questioning voice. Yes, Naruto-sama, came the large dog's reply. What exactly can the ninkan summons do? I know from working with Pakun that they're great trackers, but what else can they do? That depends entirely on who you summon, Naruto-sama. While nearly all of us are excellent trackers, there are also those who are better at combat. Our clan as a whole can dig through the earth as easily as you humans swim in the water, and that ability is used in many of our combination attacks. You should know that while each of us ninkan can be summoned as individuals, we prefer to be called in our packs. Each pack has its own function. Pakun's pack, for instance, is a balanced squad between combat and tracking, and my pack is primarily a combat squad. If that's all, Naruto-sama, I think it's time we return home. After getting a nod of approval, the three ninkan disappeared in a puff of smoke. Well, you've certainly had a lively day for someone who hasn't left their room, stated Tsunade with a small smirk. Yeah, I guess so, stated the blonde as he studied his new weapon. Suddenly a thought occurred to the blonde and he turned his